June 19, 1999. Triple overtime. Game 6 of the Stanley Cup Final. The Dallas Stars lead the series 3-2. One shot can end it. One shot can deliver the first Stanley Cup championship in franchise history. As the game stretches deeper into the night, more than 18,000 fans inside Reunion Arena wait for a moment they'll never forget. Then Brett Hull finds a loose puck near the crease. He shoots. The puck crosses the line. The Stars explode off the bench. Dallas is Stanley Cup champion. Almost immediately, controversy erupts. Buffalo players argue the goal should not count. Fans debate the play. Even today, more than 2 decades later, people still argue about what happened that night. But one thing is undeniable. Less than 6 years after arriving in Texas, the Dallas Stars had reached the top of the hockey world. And that's what makes their story so remarkable. Because this franchise wasn't born in Texas. It began more than 900 miles away in Minnesota. It survived financial struggles, a controversial relocation, bankruptcy, and multiple reinventions. Yet somehow, it emerged as one of the NHL's model franchises. This is inside the franchise of the Dallas Stars. The franchise began in 1967 as the Minnesota North Stars, one of 6 teams added during the NHL's first major expansion. Minnesota embraced the club immediately. Hockey was already part of the state's identity. The North Stars experienced their share of ups and downs, but they also created memorable moments. In 1981, they reached the Stanley Cup Final before losing to the New York Islanders dynasty. Then in 1991, they stunned hockey again with an improbable run to the Stanley Cup Final despite finishing the regular season with just 68 points. Despite those successes, financial instability followed the organization throughout much of its history. Ownership changes became common. Questions about the club's future never completely disappeared. Then came a decision Minnesota fans still haven't forgotten. In 1993, owner Norm Green relocated the franchise to Dallas. For many fans in Minnesota, it felt like a betrayal. For Dallas, it was the beginning of something entirely new. The Stars arrived at Reunion Arena carrying decades of history, but also plenty of uncertainty. Many traditional hockey fans were skeptical. Could an NHL team really thrive in Texas? The early return surprised almost everyone. Fans showed up. Attendance was strong. Interest grew. The Stars weren't just surviving, they were building something. But attendance alone wouldn't make the move successful. The franchise needed a winner. Fortunately, one was already taking shape. At the center of everything was Mike Modano. Drafted by the North Stars before the relocation, Modano became the bridge between Minnesota and Dallas. With elite speed and offensive skill, he developed into one of the greatest American-born players in NHL history. Around him, the Stars assembled an exceptional roster. Joe Nieuwendyk brought leadership and championship experience. Sergei Zubov became one of the NHL's most gifted defensemen. Darian Hatcher provided toughness and leadership as captain. Ed Belfour gave Dallas an elite goaltender capable of carrying a team through the playoffs. Then came Brett Hull, one of the greatest goal scorers the sport had ever seen. Behind the scenes, general manager Bob Gainey carefully built the roster. Behind the bench, Ken Hitchcock gave it structure, discipline, and an identity. The results followed. The Stars won the President's Trophy as the NHL's best regular season team in 1998. Then they did it again in 1999. Dallas wasn't simply a contender. They were one of the best teams in hockey. Everything was building toward the spring of 1999. The Stars fought through the Western Conference and earned a trip to the Stanley Cup Final against the Buffalo Sabres. The series became a battle. Every game felt tense. Every goal mattered. Then came Game 6. June 19, 1999. Triple overtime. The Stars led the series 3-2. One goal would end it. One goal would deliver the first Stanley Cup championship in franchise history. As the game stretched deeper into the night, tension filled the arena. Then Brett Hull found a loose puck near the crease. He shot. The puck crossed the line. The Stars exploded off the bench. Dallas was Stanley Cup champion. Almost immediately, controversy followed. Buffalo argued the goal violated the NHL's controversial crease rule, and debate over the play continues more than 2 decades later. But the result stood. The Stars had reached the summit. Joe Nieuwendyk's outstanding postseason earned him the Conn Smythe Trophy as playoff MVP. Mike Modano had delivered on his promise. Ed Belfour had anchored a championship run. And less than 6 years after arriving in Texas, the Dallas Stars stood at the top of the hockey world. The following season, they nearly did it again. Dallas returned to the Stanley Cup Final in 2000 before losing to the New Jersey Devils. For much of the next decade, the Stars remained competitive, In 2001, they moved into the American Airlines Center, a state-of-the-art arena that became their permanent home. But championship windows never stay open forever. The core that had won the Stanley Cup began to age. The NHL evolved, and financial problems started to emerge. Owner Tom Hicks had helped oversee some of the greatest years in franchise history, but mounting financial issues eventually created uncertainty throughout the organization. Then came one of the most difficult periods the franchise had ever faced. The Stars entered bankruptcy proceedings. Questions emerged about ownership. Questions emerged about the future. For a franchise that had recently been one of hockey's elite organizations, the situation felt alarming. Then came another turning point. In 2011, Tom Gagliardi purchased the team. Stability returned. The franchise finally had a foundation for the future. One of the most important decisions of the Gagliardi era came in 2013 when the Stars hired Jim Nill as general manager. Nill became the architect of the modern Stars. Through patient drafting, strong player development, and smart roster construction, he helped transform Dallas into one of the NHL's most respected organizations. Jamie Benn emerged as the face of the franchise. In 2015, he became the first Dallas Stars player to win the Art Ross Trophy as the league's leading scorer. Tyler Seguin brought elite offensive talent. Then a new generation arrived. Miro Heiskanen, Roop Hintz, Jason Robertson, Jake Oettinger, Wyatt Johnston. The Stars were contenders once again. In 2020, Dallas returned to the Stanley Cup final for the first time in 20 years. Although they fell short against the Tampa Bay Lightning, the run proved the franchise had returned to the NHL's elite tier. More importantly, Dallas had become sustainable. Not a one-year contender, not a temporary success story, a consistently competitive organization built for the long term. And that may be the greatest achievement in franchise history. The Dallas Stars have lived multiple lives. They were the Minnesota North Stars. They survived one of the most controversial relocations in NHL history. They won a Stanley Cup. They survived bankruptcy. And they rebuilt themselves into one of hockey's most respected organizations. When the Stars arrived in Texas in 1993, few could have imagined what would follow. Today, hockey is firmly established across the state. Texas now produces NHL players. Youth hockey programs have expanded dramatically. New generations of players and fans have embraced the game. The Stars didn't accomplish that alone, but they helped build the foundation. The franchise arrived as an outsider. More than 30 years later, it stands as one of the NHL's success stories. A team that adapted, a team that endured, and a team that turned a controversial relocation into a lasting legacy. And that's what makes the Dallas Stars a franchise worth remembering. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to check out our previous episode on Benfica here on Inside the Franchise. And if you're enjoying this series, consider subscribing so you don't miss the next story. To the founding members, every great franchise has its originals. Thank you for being ours. I'll see you in the next chapter of Inside the Franchise.